Good morning. Thank you so much for joining us this morning for the monthly economic employment data release media call. My name is Allison Hopkins, and I serve as the Deputy Director of External Affairs for the Florida Department of Economic Opportunity. Joining me here today is Jimmy Heckman, Bureau Chief for Workforce Statistics and Economic Research. At the conclusion of this presentation, we will be taking questions from credentialed media. To ask a question, please submit it through the Teams chat feature. We will not be able to accept questions through private chat, so please use this. We will address as many questions as possible, but if your question is not covered, please email us at media@deo.myflorida.com, and our teams will work to get you an answer. Today's presentation is focused on the employment data for December of 2022. So if you have questions regarding any other DEO topics, also use the media@deo.myflorida.com email address to connect with our communications team. I will now turn it over to Jimmy. Thank you.
Thank you, Allison. Good morning. At 10 o'clock this morning, Department of Economic Opportunity have released the December 2022 labor statistics for the state of Florida, as well as its sub-state areas, including all metropolitan areas, counties, and large cities. These data were produced by the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics through a federal-state cooperative agreement with DEO. Data were collected through a combination of employer and household surveys, administrative records, and statistical modeling techniques. As a reminder, the current population survey is used to estimate Florida's unemployment rate, total labor force, and labor force participation rate under the local area unemployment statistics program. Since these statistics are based on a survey of households, they measure information about individuals, not jobs, and they are calculated by place of residence, not place of work. Florida's seasonally adjusted unemployment rate in December 2022 was 2.5%, a decrease of 0.1 percentage point from November of 2022, a rate of 2.6%, and a decrease of 1.0 percentage points from December of last year. The national unemployment rate was 3.5%. In December 2022, Florida's statewide unemployment rate has now remained below the national rate for 25 consecutive months since December of 2020. Miami-Dade and Monroe County had the state's lowest unemployment rate at 1.4%, followed by St. Johns County at 1.8%. In December of 2022, Highlands County had the highest unemployment rate at 3.6%, followed by Citrus County at 3.5% and Sumter County at 3.4%. This unemployment rate for December 2022 represented 271,000 jobless individuals out of a labor force in Florida of 10,761,000. Florida's labor force, which is composed of all currently employed workers as well as unemployed job seekers who are actively looking for work, increased by 5,000 or less than 0.1% from the month prior. The increase in the labor force this month marks the 12th consecutive month of labor force growth in Florida's labor force, dating back to January of 2022. And as of January 2023, December 2022, there are now 467,000 more Floridians in the labor force than the pre-pandemic level from February of 2020. The national labor force increased by 439,000 or 0.3% in December of 2022. Florida's labor force has grown by 3.5% over the past year compared to 1.6% nationwide. On this slide, we present a breakdown of the reasons for unemployment statewide. These measures are derived from the current population survey and are presented as 12-month moving averages. The categories of job leavers, represented in gray, re-entrants, represented in blue, and new entrants, represented in green, are considered voluntarily unemployed, and growth in one or all of these categories can be considered a sign of an active market. These three groups combined can continue to make up more and more of Florida's unemployed population, driven by a combination of re-entrants and new entrants to the labor force. Florida's job creation data is derived from the Current Employment Statistics, or CES survey, conducted by the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics. The CES survey collects data from over 40,000 Florida businesses and establishments each month to measure jobs by industry across the state. Since these statistics are based on a survey of employers, they measure counts of jobs, not individuals, and they capture characteristics of employers, such as industry and place of work. Total non-agricultural employment in Florida rose to 9,578,500 jobs in December of 2022, up 21,400 jobs or 0.2% from November 22. This figure is up 440,000 jobs from 1 year ago, which is an over-the-year increase of 4.8%. Private sector non-agricultural employment was 8,469,400 jobs in December of 2022, 18,000 jobs or 0.2% from November of 2022. Total private employment was up 425,800 jobs from December of 2021. It's an over-the-year increase of 5.3%. 8 of the 10 major industry sectors in Florida gained jobs over the month, though all 10 major industry sectors gained jobs from 1 year ago. Education and health services gained 9,500 jobs over the month, or 0.7%, followed by trade, transportation, and utilities at 5,400 jobs, or 0.3%, and government at 3,400 jobs, or 0.3%. Financial activities lost the most jobs over the month, declining by 3,700 jobs, or 0.6%, followed by leisure and hospitality, declining by 2,100 jobs, or 0.2%. In this graphic, we can see industry recovery in Florida compared to nationwide, with Florida in blue and the United States in green. Industries above zero have more jobs now than in February of 2020. Nationally, total employment has recovered to pre-pandemic levels, and we can see that Florida has outperformed the nation in all major industry sectors except for total government. The leisure and hospitality and other services sectors in particular have surpassed February 2020 levels in Florida, while nationally those sectors have not yet recovered to pre-pandemic levels. Professional and business services and financial activities have grown the fastest over this time period. Here we see the December 2022 seasonally adjusted local area data. This shows that 16 of the 24 metro areas in Florida had over the month job gains. In particular, the Cape Coral-Fort Myers area grew at a rate of 0.9% in December, the fastest job growth among all Florida metro areas. With this release, employers in the Cape Coral-Fort Myers area are now reporting a total of 300,100 jobs, more than at any point in that area prior to Hurricane Ian. The Gainesville and Jacksonville metro areas were the second and third fastest growing at 0.8% each. The metro areas that added the most jobs in December were the Jacksonville area, adding 6,100 jobs, the Miami Beach Kendall area, adding 4,500 jobs, and the Cape Coral-Fort Myers area, adding 2,800 jobs. The metro areas that lost the most jobs were the Orlando, Kissimmee, Sanford area, losing 1,800 jobs, and the Lakeland, Winter Haven area, losing 1,500 jobs, and the West Palm Beach, Boca Raton, Delray Beach area, losing 800 jobs. Here we see the most recent job openings and labor turnover survey data for Florida. Please note that this slide reflects information from November of 2022, which is the latest data available. BLS estimates that the number of job openings shown here in blue in Florida rose to 647,000 in November of 2022, an over the month increase of 85,000. Openings are now up 16,000 or 2.5% from 1 year ago. There were 263,000 quits shown here in red statewide in November of 2022, an over the month increase of 17,000 and down 63,000 or 19.3% from 1 year ago. There were 347,000 hires shown here in green statewide in November of 2022, an over the month increase of 33,000. Hires are down 133,000 or 27.7% from 1 year ago. On December of 2022, the U.S. Census Bureau released annual state population estimates. Florida's population growth rate was 1.9% over the year, ranking first among all states. Idaho had the second highest growth rate among all states at 1.8%, followed by South Carolina at 1.7% and Texas at 1.6%. Florida has experienced positive growth every year since 1946, and this is the first time that Florida has been ranked as the fastest growing state since 1957. Florida ranks second among all states for numeric population growth over the year, gaining 416,754 people, while Texas ranked first with the largest population gain at 470,708 people. Florida saw a net population gain from migration of 444,484, the largest gain of any state, followed by Texas at 349,575 and North Carolina at 126,226. Domestic migration accounted for 318,855 of the net migration total. Also the largest gain of any state, followed by Texas at 230,961 and North Carolina at 99,796. Florida was second in the nation for international migration at 125,629, with California ranking first at 125,715 and Texas ranking third at 118,614. We're back. We had a technical issue. But moving on to the next slide, on December 23rd, the U.S. Department of Commerce released its initial estimate of gross domestic product by state for the third quarter of 2022. This graphic compares real GDP growth in Florida in blue and the U.S. in green, beginning in the fourth quarter of 2020. Florida's GDP grew at an annualized rate of 3.8% from the second to third quarter of 2022. This is up from the 1.6% annualized increase in GDP that we saw in the second quarter. Florida's real GDP growth ranked 13th among all states in the third quarter. National GDP increased at a real rate of 2.6% annualized in the third quarter, ending the 2 consecutive quarters of negative real GDP growth nationwide. Among Florida's industries, information, wholesale trade, and retail trade had the highest GDP growth rates in the third quarter of 2022. That concludes our presentation. We'll now take any questions from Credential Media.
Okay, we have a question here from Charles Murphy. Can you confirm that these are record lows for many rural counties?
I need a little more specifics there. If you're asking about unemployment rates, we might need to look into that. Or we can have a team reach back out to you with some information on where rates stand for some of our rural counties. If there's any rural counties that you're looking at in particular, we can certainly address those, or we can provide information on any counties that are not in metropolitan areas that we presented today. So we can follow up with you on that.
Okay, I do not see any more questions. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Allison.
Please join us again in March for the release of the February economic data information. Look forward to seeing you then. Thank you.